Hey everyone, Adam here. So in today's video, I wanted to do a book review on How to Avoid Climate Disaster, written by Bill Gates. Yes, the same Bill Gates that just happens to be a billionaire and the developer of the Windows operating system. Now, if you haven't seen my disclaimer video on book reviews and people that inspire me, I'm going to link that now just so I can get that out of the way with. And in the spirit of that disclaimer, I basically just want to focus in on the content of this book. Nothing more. Bill Gates could be a great person, a terrible person. I don't care. I want to just look at just the book and the content within the book. So let's dive right into it. Personally, I enjoyed the book very much, but if you already know a lot about climate change, I don't know how useful this book will be. It does do a pretty good job of basically condensing all of Bill Gates's research. So I don't know how long he's looked at this problem. I think in the book he says something like 15, 20 years, and basically condenses all of that research, everything that he's learned about this subject, into a nice, don't quote me on this, but I think it took me less than 8 hours to read. So you yourself could spend years upon years researching this, or you could just read this book and gain a very broad overview of all the challenges that we face when trying to solve climate change. Now, since I read this book, obviously I believe that climate change is very real and that we humans are 100% responsible for the climate change. Now, having said that incredibly loaded statement that should not be political but is, I also think that it is not a simple solution to just solve. I've heard a lot of people just say like, oh, let's just go all electric cars and generate clean energy. And it's unfortunately it's not that simple. And I knew there were a fair amount of challenges with trying to solve climate change, but this book takes a very pragmatic look and does a very good job, in my opinion, of kind of just at least spelling out all of the challenges that we face. And a lot of it, surprise, surprise, comes down to money. When you are trying to go green, it costs money. It costs money because we're using new technologies, trying to support new technologies. And unfortunately, for better or worse, we've never put in our society a tax or we've never put into consideration pollution. So if you're a corporation and you are not taking into account the cost, so to speak, of polluting into our environment, of course you're going to go with the cheapest option available, and that just happens to be fossil fuels. So in the book, Bill Gates talks about this green premium, and basically that is taken into account whenever you're looking at, are you going to switch over to a renewable resource, or what's the price difference and who's going to pay for it, and some of the complications with all of that. And Bill Gates also goes into a lot of stuff that I didn't necessarily consider but makes a lot of sense. So for example, renewable energy, let's use solar power, creating solar power. I know that the sun does not shine 24/7, right? If you compare that to a coal power plant, the coal power plant can be operational 24 hours a day. At best, let's say you're getting 12 hours of sunlight. So that's only 12 hours that you are generating electricity. And so within those 12 hours, you probably have to generate double the amount of electricity compared to a coal power plant. And then you have to store that electricity, which is where batteries come in, and scaling up that amount of batteries to store that amount of electricity is incredibly expensive. So I knew about that challenge well before reading this book. But something I didn't consider, and makes perfect sense, is not only do you have that challenge with the renewables, but if you take, again, let's use solar power, you may need 1,000 acres of land to generate the same amount of electricity as a coal power plant that maybe only has to sit on 50 acres of land. And why is this important? Because if we're taking and utilizing a lot more land, what else could we have used that land for, right? Now, do we have to chop down trees in order to make room for this solar power plant? Do we have to, were we going to use that for farming and feed people? And so that is a huge consideration that you know, again, makes perfect sense when it's outlined in the book, but at the time, before reading it, didn't even think about or occur to me. So basically, you're going to break down how much kilowatts you can produce per acre, for example, and that would be part of the calculation when you're looking at the amount of land that needs to be used for some of these technologies in generating clean, sustainable energy. Another challenge that was brought up in the book, and again I didn't think about, was cement. The chemical reaction for cement is that for every ton of cement or concrete that you're going to create, you are going to also create 1 ton of CO2. So it's basically a 1-to-1 ratio. And as I'm reading the book and I look around, we use concrete and cement in everything, buildings. It's all around us in our infrastructure. And so that is a vast number of CO2 that has already been released just in making concrete alone. So the good news is Bill Gates does talk about some technologies that are on the horizon to help mitigate that. But again, these are new technologies. And the nice thing that this book does is it takes not just like, oh, how do we create clean energy? It talks about all of the things that are an issue. For example, I use natural gas for my cooking, and I use it for my heating, for hot water, and for my gas furnace. And extracting natural gas, that's going to release CO2, and even burning natural gas is going to release CO2 into the atmosphere. So, you know, again, you know, it brings up the question, like, all right, should I switch all of that to electricity? Can the grid handle that? It would be nice, you know, Bill Gates talks about maybe we could switch all of that to hydrogen, which would be ideal because we already have the infrastructure and the piping to maybe handle all of that. But even that, if you think about that, right? Like, is everyone going to switch over on this exact day? Are you going to lay new piping? Just all these monumental challenges that we face to solve this problem. And then another issue that was brought up in the book was Bill Gates does some math about planting trees. And again, I'm not validating this. I'm not saying if it's good or bad math, but Bill Gates is definitely skeptical that we can plant trees to solve all of our issues. And I tend to agree with that idea because what else are you going to use the land for, right? Like we've been cutting down forests to grow food, and as our population grows, we're going to need more food. And Bill Gates certainly is not against planting trees. I'm all for planting trees as well. But you know, if you think like, oh, well, we'll just plant more trees and continue doing what we're doing, that is probably not going to work. And in the book, Bill Gates brings up a very interesting concept that we have to get net neutral with CO2 by the year 2050, or even in the negative. And that means that we're actually extracting CO2 out of the atmosphere, like more CO2 out of the atmosphere than what we're releasing and putting into it. And why this concept is so important is that Bill Gates talks about how it might be in our best interest to actually delay certain projects if it means that we can immediately be net neutral. So let me give you an example. If I need to buy a vehicle right now, and if I buy a hybrid vehicle, yeah, it's true, I'll be reducing my CO2 emissions like quite a bit compared to like a regular car, but I'm just reducing. I'm not eliminating. And so if I waited 3 years, because you know, electric cars maybe cost a little bit more money, but if I waited 3 years and if I bought an electric vehicle, and this assumes that all of my energy that I am powering the electrical vehicle with is coming from clean energy, then that means I have eliminated, at least from the time of purchasing the car, I'm not talking about manufacturing the car, but the time of purchasing the car, my CO2 that I'm releasing is none. It's zero, right? And again, assuming all of the electricity is coming from a clean energy source. that is much, much more advantageous than just simply reducing. And so to me, once that was kind of spelled out and I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, we really need to, if I can think of technologies that I buy that eliminate versus just reducing, eliminating my CO2 is a much, much better solution long term. Now, this next section might be a little bit controversial. Bill Gates talks a lot about nuclear power, and he believes that that is the best bang for your buck at the moment for a variety of reasons. Now, full disclosure, and he does bring it up in the book, that he is investing his own money into a nuclear power plant. And so based upon that information, it sounds like he is looking to eventually make money. That's why you invest into this. Now, I don't know his real motives. I don't know if he's expecting to lose money, if he would be okay with losing money. But he definitely is promoting nuclear power reactors to generate clean energy. Now, I do agree from a pragmatic standpoint. Again, I'm not saying that there aren't issues with using nuclear power, but from a pragmatic standpoint, that is, as of right now, the best thing that we can use in order to create clean energy 24/7. With a nuclear power plant, you have complete control. You can say how much electricity you're going to put into the grid or how much you're going to hold back, very much like a coal power plant or a natural gas power plant. So I could see nuclear power kind of offsetting some of the challenges with renewable energy. For example, maybe you have a nuclear power plant next to a solar farm, for example, and at nighttime the nuclear power plant kicks on, or however it's going to be set up. But I'm not necessarily pro or against nuclear power. I'm just saying that from that perspective, it makes a lot of sense why you would want to push nuclear power. So you can do your own research, figure out if that's something that you support or not, or find out if Bill Gates is being sincere or not when he's recommending nuclear power. But at least in my mind, as I said, it makes sense from the arguments he's outlined why it might be worth considering. So my minor gripe with the book is just more of a missed opportunity. And again, this is Bill Gates fairly sincere in trying to offer solutions, give his take on the whole how to avoid a climate disaster through climate change that we're causing. So that part feels fairly authentic, I would say, after reading the book. It is very technology focused. I think Bill Gates thinks that technology will be able to solve this, which again remains to be seen. But like I said, overall, I do believe Bill Gates is trying to be sincere with this book. Where I feel that there was a missed opportunity is the fact that to get this into the hands of many, many more readers that would be willing to read this book, right? If you don't believe in climate change or think we're the cause of it, you're probably not going to read this. But it may have been nice if somehow this book was released for free. And again, I don't know how hard that would be, because I'm sure many people have contributed to this book, and then you have the publisher to worry about. But I do feel that if anyone could do it, would be a billionaire, would have the resources to perhaps make this book for free. And again, I'm not necessarily judging Bill Gates, because if he wants to make money off of this, that is totally his choice. I just feel that it was a missed opportunity, and it would have been neat that, like, for example, like if the Kindle version or a PDF was released that was like free to the public, again, I get it. There are libraries. You can go to the library to read this book. But I just think that would have been really cool, because it would have been like, oh yeah, Bill Gates believes so strongly, and he wants this to be out into as many hands as possible, that he has released this book for free. Another alternative could have been maybe that a foundation was set up, and all proceeds from this book get put into that foundation that basically set up other climate change initiatives into research or whatever. Basically, it would be like you buy the book, but it's basically a donation to these other programs that help solve climate change. And again, completely up to Bill Gates how he wants to set this up. But I think that would have been cool. I think that was a missed opportunity, and it would have been neat to see something like that set up. But it is what it is. So that's it. I've rambled on a little bit too long. Overall, I enjoyed the book. If you want to get a broad overview of climate change and a lot of the issues and challenges we face, and some of the technologies that may or may not be on the horizon, and maybe why aren't we using clean hydrogen and the issues with hydrogen, and a whole host of other things, this book may be worth your time to pick up and read. So that's it. Hopefully you found this book review helpful, and hopefully you got something out of this video. And as always, thanks for watching.